How's it going, everybody? Thank you very much. I always appreciate you watching. I'm Orlando Ruiz Jr. Welcome to another classic movie review. This is my review of a film that I don't just consider a cult classic, but a certified classic. It is now 30 years old as of the 10th of May of this year, and so, of course, I'm talking about 1994's The Crow from director Alex Proyas, the director of I, Robot, Dark City, Knowing. Of course, this movie stars Brandon Lee, who was cut short of his prime at a very young age, at the age of 28. Died, I believe it was March 31st, 1993, at the fatal wound of a gunshot while filming this film. Of course, this movie has a very tragic backstory behind it, but talking about the film overall, and I will get into a bit of the tragedy as well, because you kind of have to when talking about this movie. It can't be avoided. It really is a part of it in a way. On the eve of his honeymoon on Halloween night, Brandon Lee's character Eric Draven arrives home to find a group of psychos terrorizing his new bride. They beat her, they rape her, they leave her for dead, and Brandon Lee is thrown out a window. And pretty soon there is a crime scene, and they take the bodies away, but Eric Draven is pretty much dead, but Shelley is kind of holding on, and Ernie Hudson's character in the film is this cop that tries to help out, but he's a little too late. The movie begins with the Eric and Shelley crime scene where we see a bunch of cops all over the place, and we meet Ernie Hudson's character, Sergeant Albrecht, for the first time. He is a uniformed cop. He's a good cop. He's trying to do a bit of detective work, trying to find out exactly what happened to Eric and Shelley. And while he's observing, he notices a young girl, this preteen girl, Sarah, who seems to be affected by the loss of Shelley. It turns out that they befriended her when they were alive, and so she's very kind of feeling the loss. When it comes to movies and kid actors, every now and then you come across that one actor that really took you out of the movie because their acting was kind of weak, or maybe really helped the movie because their acting was on par with everything else. And I'm glad to say that that is the case with the character of Sarah, played by Rochelle Davis, who is very, very good for her age in this movie. The story jumps ahead a year later where we catch up with what the scumbags who killed Eric and Shelley are doing now, and then we cut to the graveyard where Eric crawls out of a grave, screaming, crawling out of the dirt. It's raining, and he goes home, finds his place all trashed, begins to have memories of that terrible night, and there is a crow that kind of accompanies him, and we can see like the crow's kind of POV, and with the soundtrack of this movie really kind of setting the mood for this transformation that his character kind of goes into when putting on the makeup. It is one of the great movie moments of the 90s. From the moment that Brandon Lee's character is getting ready to do battle and he's putting on the clothes, putting on the makeup, and he's standing in the window, and that flash of lightning happens where you see his face for the first time very quickly in a short glimpse, and you see the crow right beside him, and it's raining and it looks really cool, and you just know that these bad guys are in for a world of hurt. It's been said that when it comes to action movies, a good action movie is usually as good as the villain, and The Crow has a pretty good set of villains. I think that the requirement for a good villain is the movie just has to get you to really hate these people to the point where you really want to see their demise and see them go out in the most violent way possible. And so I think this movie does that pretty well. You got David Patrick Kelly as T-Bird, leader of the group of scumbags. Each goon in the movie has their own shtick or methodology or different character traits. Like T-Bird likes to burn stuff. He's a bit of a pyromaniac. You got Fun Boy, who is into shooting up heroin, and he's all over the place, really. I guess, he's into raping people and just being an overall creep. You also got Tintin, who is kind of a knife guy, likes to throw knives and stuff. And you also got Shank, who I think is kind of maybe emotionally uh, challenged, but still part of the group. So he's an important member still. And you also have the character played by Bai Ling, who's supposed to be like a sister to the main bad guy, but doesn't really act like it. In terms of the way they create this city and the world and the look of the film, there is some great use of models and optical effects with the way the camera moves through the city, showing buildings on fire and buildings with steam coming out of them, and looks very, very cool even to this day. Very well done, and overall really gives the movie a great look, mood, and feel. Brandon Lee was 28 years old when he died filming this movie. By then, he had already been in some movies, like a small part in No Retreat, No Surrender, some small movie called Laser Mission, very low budget movie. He was in a very So Bad It's Fun movie called Showdown in Little Tokyo that co-stars Dolph Lundgren. And a very, very good and underrated action movie from director Dwight H. Little from 1992 called Rapid Fire, which I will eventually get to because that is a kick ass action movie that deserves some praise. But with this movie, he was going to blow up based on performance alone to be the next big action star of the 90s. And his performance is definitely proof of that. When you watch this film, you can see the charisma and just the talent there with this guy. I very much remember when he died because everybody was having that conversation of, oh my god, just 20 years prior, look what happened to his dad before the release of his big movie Enter the Dragon, which was gonna make him an international star, not just a star in Hong Kong, but Bruce Lee would have been like a legit mainstream star because Enter the Dragon was like a mainstream Warner Brothers movie. It's a very sad legacy, but it's a great legacy nonetheless. They both made great films. They both made an impact on the world of cinema and the action genre. Everything about The Crow, whether it's the movie or whether you're talking about the comic, was born out of some kind of tragedy. The creator of the character in the comic, James O'Barr, suffered a tragedy in the late 70s when his fiancee died in a car crash, and in order to deal with the whole process of grieving, created this character, and then it was published and became an actual comic selling in 1989, which was the same year that Batman came out, Tim Burton's Batman. Funny enough, when The Crow would be released in 94, there were critics that were calling it the next Batman, mainly because of its style. After the very tragic death of the film star Brandon Lee, the filmmakers had to complete the film with the use of body doubles and some very clever CGI trickery to finish the film. Every now and then you can kind of get a hint of when maybe they're using that double in certain shots when you don't see his face and stuff like that, which is to be kind of assumed it's not him when you don't see his face. But for the most part, it's hard to tell because they do a very good job of blending it all in and making it look seamless. And even though it's the early mid 90s, the CGI is very effective to the point where you can't even tell if it's not him or not in certain scenes. And so, yeah, it holds up beautifully. Here's a fun fact for fans of the Crow comic series. Actor Michael Berryman was actually cast in the role of the Skull Cowboy, the character that is like a guide to Eric Draven when he comes back to the real world. And Michael Berryman actually shot and filmed scenes playing the character. Unfortunately, they didn't make the cut, and his character was cut altogether. Another little fun fact for action fans, Chad Stahelski, the director of John Wick, who also worked with Keanu Reeves doing action choreography for the Matrix films, is one of the people that served as one of the doubles for Brandon Lee in several scenes in this movie. Yeah, The Crow, 1994, 3.5 stars. Definitely seek this one out if you have not seen it yet. Brandon Lee was only in a few films, but to this day, for action movie fans like myself, he has left a lasting impact due to the movies that he was in, like Rapid Fire or The Crow or Showdown in Little Tokyo. And to this day, I'm going to miss the dude because I think whenever I watch one of his movies, I always wonder what he would have gone on to do had he had lived. But, you know, it's very sad, but still his legacy will always live on, and we will always remember him fondly for his work. 1994 is The Crow. Check it out if you haven't seen it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for watching this classic movie review. I very much appreciate it. If you're into the classics, if you're into movies, if you're new to the channel, hit the bell, become a subscriber. Please don't forget to comment, share, like, always helps out the channel. If you're a returning viewer, thank you very much for your support. I always appreciate it. Everybody take care of each other. Till next time. Peace out. God bless.